Imagine, if you will, a decentralized lending protocol voting to take control of someone's wallet through a governance vote. Then, after discovering how much blowback there is from this vote, they hold another vote to invalidate the previous vote. Yes, this actually happened, and on Solend. But of course, there's a lot more to this story. So, let's break it down, shall we? Now, for those unfamiliar, Solend is a DeFi lending protocol built on the Solana blockchain. It's the most popular lending protocol on Solana, and prior to the Terra collapse, it had a TVL of almost $1 billion. That has since shrunk to $237 million. Now, as we've seen in the past 2 weeks, the crypto markets have been through an immense amount of stress. Funds have gone bust, and some CeFi lenders have paused their withdrawals. It has, to be frank, been uglier than a baboon's backside, and if I've offended anyone in the baboon community with that analogy, well, cancel me, you red-ass freaks. I digress. Naturally, these market conditions led to a collapse in the price of Sol, and Solend was in a particular pickle because of a massive whale who'd borrowed over $100 million in stablecoins and put up $170 million of Sol as collateral. Now, this Sol was coming increasingly close to liquidation, and the Solend team was trying to contact said whale in order to get them to pay down the loan and avoid that liquidation. And why were they doing that, you ask? Well, if the price reached the liquidation level, then the protocol would initiate those on-chain liquidations. And the only problem was that the team was worried that this mass liquidation event could have serious implications for the protocol and, by extension, user funds. That's because the liquidators would market sell $21 million, or 20% of the borrow amount, on DEXs. And moreover, there were concerns that as the liquidators spammed the liquidate function, this could risk bringing down the Solana blockchain. And you can insert your own witty remark about how that is not unusual here. So the Solend devs were faced with a choice: put user funds at risk and potentially crash the Solana blockchain, or do the unthinkable, vote to control a single user's funds, right in that sweaty spot between a rock and a hard place. Now, of course, if the Solana network was more robust and therefore able to handle these on-chain liquidations, well, we wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place. But let's not go there. So the developers decided to hold a DAO vote that would have taken over the whale's account and liquidated that Sol in an OTC trade. Now, just think about how crazy that proposal is. It goes against the very ethos of DeFi. And, to make an already unpleasant situation even worse, the Solend users were only given 6 hours in which to vote. Now, the vote ended up passing, but it also emerged that one user, worth $700k, made up 90% of that vote, and that, my friends, is called centralization. Now, this is not intended as an attack on Solend. The team were in an incredibly difficult position, and I, for one, wouldn't want to be in their shoes. But there were many in the community who questioned what this vote could mean for DAOs, Solana, and for DeFi as a whole. Now, I'll leave a link to this thread in the description by the People's Degen. It's pretty insightful as to the impact that this vote could have on people's confidence in DeFi. Now, quite understandably, the rest of the crypto community was also up in arms, and so great was the backlash that the Solend team decided to backtrack. So they then pushed another proposal that would have invalidated the vote on the previous proposal. It would also increase the voting time to 1 day. Now, the 700k user who voted in round 1 then came out and stated the reason for his initial vote prior to the second round of voting. He stated, quote, "I don't care about crypto Twitter hate if that means salvaging $120 million of retail dollar instead of holding up DeFi ethos for some whale that's degeneratively gambling 9-figure positions." So, governance proposal SLND2 passed with 99% of the vote. But this, of course, raises a whole bunch of other questions about DAOs and governance. How final can we assume future votes to be if they can just be invalidated if the outcome brings a backlash? It's a real can of worms, this one, and if I've offended anyone in the worm community with that analogy, well, I don't know, go speak to the baboons. So, in one bit of good news, the Solend team has thankfully been able to get hold of the whale in question and been able to talk with them and come up with a solution to spread the risk. For example, $25 million of the debt has now been moved to Mango Markets, another Solana DEX. Shortly after this, a third governance proposal was voted on. Now this would impose a per-account borrow limit of $50 million, among a few other things as well. So while it appears that a crisis has kind of been averted, we have to ask ourselves what this episode means for DeFi and decentralized governance in general, because there's no denying that this is a terrible look. It's been roundly criticised and has further sapped confidence in a sector that's already under enough strain. Now, I certainly don't envy the Solend team having to make such a consequential decision and under such circumstances. Sometimes in life you have to decide between two, really shitty outcomes. Both stink, but it's a choice between which stinks the least. So this lamentable saga will deservedly raise questions as to how faith in decentralized governance can be restored. We also need to ask tough questions about the designs of these DeFi protocols. Because yes, the Solend team were put in an impossible position, but should it even be possible for one whale to take on so much risk that it jeopardizes other users' funds? Because frankly, DeFi is not going to catch on if some degen can borrow millions of dollars and risk leaving others out of pocket when the trade goes sour. Good luck persuading the man or woman in the street to put their money in a protocol that allows that kind of thing to happen. And how can decentralization be implemented while mitigating these sorts of risks? Now, there are no easy answers to these questions, and it shows that DeFi has a very long way to go and a lot of building to do before it can fulfill its potential. So, it's just as well bear markets are the perfect opportunity for work of this kind to get done.